Wait, what? The daughter of the owner of LA Times said that the decision not to endorse Harris stemmed from her stance on the Gaza war. Oh my God, I'm eating crow today. Oh my God, I'm eating crow today. That's crazy. Oh my God, I thought it was like, oh my God, I jokingly said LA Times and WAPO are based. They're actually refusing to endorse Kamala Harris over her Gaza policy. Wait, as in she's not pro-Palestine or not pro-Israel enough? Wait, hold on. A California native and resident of Los Angeles, Ms. Harris was not a unifying and inspirational generational figure, but in the board members' view, but also an important bulwark between Donald J. Trump and democratic institutions. Wait. They were unaware, however, that a different tone and more powerful group had been meeting the family. Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong, the newspaper's owner, with far different plans for the newspaper's voice. This week, the biotech billionaire who had bought the paper in 2018 for $500 million acted on those plans with scant internal or public explanation, abruptly vetoing the planned endorsement, informing the board through an intermediary that the LA Times would make no recommendation in the presidential race. For days, the readers in overwhelmingly liberal Southern California speculated angrily about the decision that was widely regarded as favorable to Mr. Trump and a vote of no confidence to Ms. Harris. Thousands of readers canceled subscriptions, but in a stunning statement on Saturday, his daughter, Nika Soon-Shiong, 31, a progressive political activist who has frequently been accused of trying to meddle in the paper's news coverage, said the decision was motivated by Ms. Harris's continued support for Israel and its war in Gaza. Our family made the joint decision. Oh my God. I never in a billion years would have thought, are my eyes deceiving me? What? We don't honestly believe that, right? Like, come on, dude, don't be naive. This was the first and only time I've been involved in the process. Ms. Soon-Shiong, who has no formal role at the paper, said in a statement to the New York Times, as a citizen of a country openly financing genocide and as a family that experienced South African apartheid, the endorsement was an opportunity to repudiate justifications of the widespread targeting of journalists and ongoing war on children. Over the past 6 years, writers and editors have increasingly chafed at the interference. Dr. Soon-Shiong, 72, and his family in the newsroom, where owners are generally regarded less proprietors with the right to impose their personal views as guardians of public trust. In January, Kevin Morita stepped down as executive editor after clashing with Dr. Soon-Shiong over an unpublished article about an acquaintance of the newspaper owner, as well as other conflicts in the newsroom. Oh my God, every other media outlet is going to come after these guys now. Even this New York Times coverage is like, the New York Times coverage is like, originally I thought that, they were doing the billionaires are interfering with the election. And that's what I thought too. This is very clearly a billionaire family endorsing Trump without actually endorsing him and disguising it in woke. Stop being naive. I don't know. According to his Wikipedia page, her dad tried to get a position in Trump's White House. So it could be, that could be the case. I'm still like, that was my initial assumption. My initial assumption was this. These guys are billionaires, okay? And billionaires have a lot of contracts that they can get from whoever comes in the next administration. And they see that, like, it's a close race. And I do remember this, which is why I thought it was like, which is why I would have never thought in a million years that they would actually never actually take a stance like this. Taking that stance publicly isn't what you would do if you were that reason. There's plenty of shit you can lie about. I know. There's a lot of controversy and confusion over LAT's decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. I trust the editorial board's judgment. For me, is the line in the sand. The temptation is to speak in muffled tones. Wait, this is her? I would love to have her on the broadcast. That's crazy. For my family, apartheid is not a vague concept. My father was an emergency surgeon at Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto. He treated students shot by the police during the Soweto uprisings, where 176 died protesting the brutal system of racial segregation. Both parties have plenty of billionaire supporters at the end of the day. They aren't necessarily going to go for Trump. No, there are. Okay, this is confusing. Because there is a lot of stuff that the LA Times did early on that I did not like. Okay. I am quite interested in finding out more. NPR says Washington Post and owners have too much business to lose if they endorse and piss off Trump. Yeah, I think that analysis isn't wrong. I can totally see there's no reason to woke jacket here. They're going to get more heat for saying it's over Gaza instead of saying they're pro-Trump. Yeah, she probably was completely removed from those decisions. Early on, it was probably the editorial board and not the owners. There are two people here, her and her father. It's confusing because it says the papers board was ready to endorse. Okay, here's what we do know. Okay, here's what we do know. Oh my God, she's younger than me. That's crazy. First of all, that's insane. What the what is happening? What's going on? What is happening in this world? How is that I am so old? That's frustrating. That's a totally irrelevant, but still very frustrating fact to come to terms with. God damn it. I am 2 years older than her. How is that possible? What the I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. Okay. I'm also ADD. I'm also so ADHD right now. What the I can't even focus. I can't focus. I'm an old man, and that's why my focus is gone. Let's get back to the story. Let's get back to the matter at hand. Nika is super based. Oh my God. Cinemarxism. A Cinemarxism endorsement for a billionaire's daughter that was the public safety commissioner that held a position in local office in Los Angeles. It's over. It's done. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. I never in a million years would have ever heard Cinemarxism say anything remotely positive about anyone that has ever held local office ever. This person must be like a Maoist or something. Okay. This gives me hope. Whenever I hear people that are in like, that come from, you know, relatively wealthy families or people who are pretty wealthy themselves have these sorts of remarkable opinions that are so unheard of in places of power. It actually gives me a little bit of hope. Seeing my favorite documentarian / anarchist anti-cop Los Angelino endorse this person is shocking. Now I trust everything that she has said. Okay. What the Nika is just covering for her Trump supporting dad, except for his precious baby girl. Not that she has done. I don't know. This is funny because the coverage of the LA Times and every single newspaper in the US has painted dissent against the war as criminal. That is true. That is like not wrong. That is literally not wrong. If she like, that's why it's shocking. Oh, wait, hold on. Even if her dad actually made this decision in a pro-Trump fashion, it is very cool that she's now cooking him a little bit and simultaneously associating this like massive media coverage worthy decision with a pro-Palestinian anti-moral position. This will absolutely change the dynamic a little bit. Still worth mentioning that it's overall a net negative because that means the editorial team of a major newspaper is actually in the pocket, but a billionaire's daughter got in the way. She might be the only exception to an overall unfortunate situation. No, I agree. I would love to talk to this person. I would love to get in contact with this person. I'd love to talk to them. They seem dope. So, you know. So let's get back to the story. So in January, Kevin Morita stepped down as executive editor, clashing with Dr. Soon Xiong over an unpublished article about an acquaintance of the newspaper owner, as well as other conflicts in the newsroom. Just a few weeks later, the publication carried out its most widespread layoffs in more than a decade, cutting 115 journalists in a move that slashed the newsroom by more than 20%. But the dispute over the endorsement echoed 2 days later when the Washington Post announced that it would also not make an endorsement in the race, prompted urgent new questions about what had motivated the decision. Speaking this week on the cable news outlet Spectrum, which regularly carries Los Angeles Times content, Dr. Soon Xiong was asked about a possible political motivation. I want us desperately to air all the voices on the opinion side on the op-ed side, he said. He said he did not know whether readers viewed him or his family as ultra-progressive or not, but I'm an independent. In an interview with one of his own reporters on Friday, Dr. Soon Xiong said that his stand was not based on any single issue, nor did he intend by withholding an endorsement to favor either Ms. Harris or Mr. Trump. We should be an organization that stands up and says the facts, presenting views across the political spectrum, he said. I think that the country needs that desperately. Several senior editors of the Times said they were not briefed on the reasons for Dr. Soon-Shiong's decision, but they noted that he had often been critical of the Biden administration, had boasted of having dinner with Mr. Trump after he won the presidency in 2016, and often has approvals pending with the Federal Food and Drug Administration. They speculated that he may have been hedging his bets over a range of issues. One person potentially in a position to know was the publication's current executive director, Terry Tang, who replaced Mr. Merida. In a departure from the practice of the most major news organizations, which have a clear organizational separation between news and opinion, Ms. Tang, who had been the publication's editorial page editor, took on oversight of both departments when she became the executive director. Ms. Tang previously served as an editor at the New York Times for 20 years. Ms. Tang did not respond to requests for comment and did not appear to have addressed the staff over the issue. Mariel Garza, who was the paper's editorials editor and who resigned in protest on Tuesday, said that she had been caught completely off guard. Dr. Soon-Shiong, she said, had been told in late September the board planned to endorse Ms. Harris, an unsurprising choice given the Times' past criticism of Mr. Trump and his generally liberal editorial stances. Ms. Harris, who is originally from the Bay Area, has been married for more than a decade to a Los Angeles entertainment lawyer, Doug Emhoff, and has kept a home in the upscale West Los Angeles neighborhood of Brentwood. Oh, damn, she lives in Brentwood? Brentwood is beautiful. Ms. Garza said she became increasingly concerned as weeks passed without approval of the endorsement from the owner. 2 weeks ago, she said she learned from Ms. Tang that Dr. Soon-Shiong had decided against issuing an endorsement. She said Ms. Tang told her that he had not given her a clear rationale for the decision. Ms. Garza, who was the first person to resign on the editorial board, said she felt no choice but to resign in protest. Used to rent in Brentwood? Yeah, my living circumstances in Brentwood were quite different than I suspect Kamala Harris's, let's be real. This is our duty, she said in an interview on Friday. It is in a scary time, and we all need to be brave and not be cowed. By the end of the week, two more editorial members, Karen Klein and Robert Greene, a 2021 Pulitzer Prize winner, had also resigned. All vigorously contested Dr. Soon-Shiong's assertion that they had chosen to remain silent. This is not about disagreeing with the owner, said Ms. Klein, an author and specialist in education who's been with the Times for 35 years, 22 of them as an editorial writer. To do this a couple weeks before the election is truly doing an editorial, a make-believe, invisible editorial that sends a message that we have doubts about Kamala. The confrontation over the endorsement comes after years of uneasy relations between the owner and the newsroom. Reporters and editors have chafed at phone calls, emails, and social media postings, offering questions and suggestions about the news coverage from both Dr. Soon-Shiong and his daughter. In the past, she has been critical of the publication's coverage of crime, policing, and Israel's war in Gaza, among other things. Several reporters interviewed described Ms. Soon-Shiong contacting them directly with critiques of their coverage or publicly posting her negative opinions about the stories on social media. A former editor recalled reporters worrying about whether her comments were actually coming from her father. You never know how much Nika is speaking for herself and how much she is speaking for her whole family, the editor said. This is incredible. This is the exact opposite of how things normally work. Okay. And it's really interesting that given that this is the exact opposite of how things really work, I think you will see a lot more backlash on this, perhaps even more backlash on this than Jeff Bezos, who I don't think is motivated by, the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden administration's decisions on Israel, unless Jeff Bezos, given his hatred for MBS and MBS's allegiances with Israel, also weirdly is anti-Israel for some reason, in which case I'm losing my mind. Okay. At that point, it's Jover. You know what I mean? Jeff Bezos, more like Jeff Based. Oh, okay. You're in too deep now. I'm just saying crazier things have happened. Okay. Yeah, she actually defunded the police in West Hollywood. West Hollywood cut a few sheriff's deputies. It fueled a national firestorm on crime. Defunding. This is absolute copium. It's big business making overtures to Trump. That was my initial assessment as well, and that has not changed for Jeff Bezos. I think they see, first of all, a lot of the tech bros, a lot of the Silicon Valley tech bros are insanely pro-Trump, okay? Openly pro-Trump. That's number one. That's something you got to remember, okay? So that is not as shocking to me. That is not as shocking to me in terms of people being like, don't endorse Kamala Harris. And then they just use like the fake, we shouldn't endorse anybody, we're a newspaper type shit. Okay, it's like, come on, dude. How did the doctor earn their billions? Biotech. Early in the coronavirus pandemic, Dr. Soon Shong wanted medical reporters to investigate connections between COVID-19 and cancer, which many perceived as a story that, if published, would further his business interests. Two people with knowledge of the situation said, wait, okay, that in and of itself, while self-serving, is not necessarily like a bad lead to push for. Why are they, what? Okay, that's a weird thing to criticize. That is a weird thing to, that's like, dude, this is literally QAnon. What are you, an anti-vaxxer? Like, okay, yeah, he makes cancer medication, got it. But also, that's like a weird thing to be like, yeah, this cancer researcher who has made cancer medication wants his reporters to investigate the connection between COVID and cancer. That's an understandable position, whether he was directly getting whether he was directly making money off the situation or not. That's kind of weird, but okay. This is why I always look, as much as I criticize the pharmaceutical giants and big industry of that sort, okay, I have always maintained the position that like sometimes the broader interests of the public surviving, living, being alive, and the broader interests of like the billionaire class align in a positive way. A lot of people look at that, especially during COVID, and go, well, I hate corporations and I hate big pharma. They're trying to make me gay. I look at it and I go, well, billionaires want their cattle to not die and get back to work faster. So they want everyone to be vaccinated. Of course they do. But it's one of those unique moments where like they might have an alternative reason for why they want you to get vaccinated. But ultimately, it still aligns. It's still a good thing. You know what I mean? And this is yet another one of those moments where it's like, sure, he might have a cancer vaccine or he might have some cancer medication. He's a cancer researcher. There's a conflict of interest here for sure. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Late last year, tried to dissuade the former executive director, Mr. Morita, from publishing a story about a doctor who was an acquaintance of his. After clashing with Dr. Soon Shong over the staffing levels and newsroom management, Mr. Morita left the paper in January. That seems weird. That is definitely like self-serving. I don't know what the fuck this was about, but several sources told the New York Times at the time that Dr. Soon Shong had stepped in to make inquiries about the newspapers reporting on the doctor, who was embroiled in dueling lawsuits with a woman who claimed to have been bitten by his dog. Yeah, This is typical rich guy shit and unacceptable. I think it's unacceptable for wealthy people, for billionaires to like purchase newspapers and then motivate them to carry out their agenda. This is one of the major biases that I talk about in mainstream press, because although in the United States of America, they're not technically owned by the state in the same way that like Al Jazeera is owned by the Qatar state or BBC is owned by the British state and carries out the state's interests openly because they are a state newspaper. There are still very clear ambitions, very clear motivations amongst these privately owned newspapers that align with the interests of capital and align with the American State Department. This is something that I explain all the time in my media criticisms, right? It's an important part of media literacy in general. And having said that, however, it happens across the board. It happens in every outlet. It happens in every institution of journalism. And it usually happens in quiet ways. It doesn't happen with like direct interference in this exact same way, right? It usually occurs in ways where you kind of know what you can say, what you can't say. You get elevated, manufacturing consent style. You get elevated to higher and higher offices within the structure of the media. If you play ball on certain things, right? Like that's usually how it's kept up. This is unique because it goes against the grain. direct interference on a story does not necessarily go against the grain. Direct interference on a story is like, typical billionaire shit. But if there's any kind of like real issues with the Harris administration's policies, foreign policy specifically, and the Biden-Harris administration's actions with Israel, okay, if that is the real issue here, if they are at odds with the Kamala Harris campaign for this particular reason, and that's the reason why they're withholding their endorsement, that is different. That is different than like Jeff Bezos' motivations, most likely. And that's actually unique. That's actually shocking. That is not something that I suspected would ever happen. Soon Xiong made several noteworthy editorial proposals encouraging the paper to vastly increase its coverage of non-white communities in the Los Angeles area, and suggested the paper avoid using the word looting when covering civil unrest over police brutality and racial injustice. The Times subsequently changed its style guidelines to specify when the paper felt it was appropriate to use the word. This is from a Daily Beast article in 2021. That's really interesting. LA Times billionaire daughter is tinkering with the paper and staffers welcome it. Now, there's a couple different there's a couple different interests at play here. Broadly, this is hard to, I won't say that this is across the board the same, and I certainly do not know what the internals look like at LA Times. But broadly speaking, editorial teams, as far as my experience goes from the journalists I talk to, editorial teams are sometimes a little bit at odds ideologically with the journalists that are doing the reporting. They have a lot of power. They can change the dynamic of a story. They can literally take original reporting and actually make the article come across as the exact opposite. This is something that editorial teams can do, right? Like editors can do this. The editorial board's opinion on a certain issue can like genuinely change the outcome of the news coverage. And as far as I've seen, a lot of the lower level staffers and actual journalists are oftentimes, including but not limited to the New York Times even, at odds with what the editors are trying to get out of certain stories in the way that they are trying to massage certain stories. Every now and then something actually slips out, or every now and then there's a delicate balance where you are trying to retain credibility. You're trying to be a credible source of news. So you turn around and you give in. And the New York Times certainly does a litany of those sorts of stories where everyone's shocked, where they're like, damn, they just interviewed 56 healthcare professionals in Gaza and openly admitted that like they've never seen so many babies with bullets lodged into their skulls. That's crazy. So that happens every now and then for one reason or another. And I think that if this is true, if what I'm seeing is correct, it seems like at least the daughter, Soon Xiong's daughter, definitely has a political perspective that is aligned with ours here in this community. And for one reason or another, she has chosen to speak out at a time when there's a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention on Los Angeles Times refusing to endorse Kamala Harris, and is saying that the real reason is because of the current administration's policies on Gaza. At one point, Dr. Soon Xiong contacted Mr. Morita demanding to see a copy of the story, suggesting that it should not be published. The New York Times reporting showed. Dr. Soon Xiong also told Mr. Morita on a call that he would fire journalists if he learned that they were concealing the completed article from him. A story was finally published in April. This is pretty funny. Bitten by a billionaire's dog or a case of extortion? A legal saga from an LA dog park. That is hilarious. That this is the scary... What? This is the scary story that he didn't want people to hear. Dr. Gary Michelson, a 2019 gala for his Michelson Found Animals Foundation in Beverly Hills. Michelson, 75, seems an unlikely antagonist in a dog bite case. After reaching a $1.35 billion patent dispute settlement with medical device maker Medtronic 2 decades ago, he has made a name for himself as a philanthropist in animal welfare and other fields. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005 orphaned more than 100,000 pets, he established the nation's first free microchip pet registry. He's standing prize offer $25 million for the development of single-dose medication that can permanently and safely sterilize both cats and dogs. His devotion to animal welfare extended to his own pet Blue, a Bayesian white dog with droopy eyes. He celebrated on Instagram with a tongue-in-cheek handle scary pit bully. The page, since taken down, documented the maturation of the American Bully XL, the largest muscular breed derived from the American Pit Bull Terrier, and the United Kennel Club describes as more gentle and playful, making an excellent family dog. Michelson and Eveling, 37, an immigrant from Sweden, were regulars at Veterans Barrington Park. Oh my God, this is the dog park I used to go to all the time. That's crazy. That's crazy. I used to literally live. I rented. When I rented in Braidwood, that's the dog park I went to. That dog park is cursed, by the way. I want to tell you something really crazy. It's on a VA land, and there's speculation that there were nuclear testing. There was nuclear testing being conducted, and that there might be nuclear radiated bodies being buried there as well. Anyway, that's besides the point. That's some real LA lore right now, but that's crazy. It's a beautiful dog park. It's a beautiful area in general. The incident took place on August 9th, 2022, just outside of a fenced-in dog park on the ball fields where owners let their dogs run free. Eveling in her lawsuit said that she was walking her dog Neo, a Tamascan, when Blue charged her pet, and that she was bitten trying to protect it. She sought treatment that evening at an urgent care clinic, complaining of pain in her left hand from a crush injury and an abrasion on her right elbow, according to medical records. An x-ray found no fractures or vascular injuries in her hand, which was put in a finger split. She was given a tetanus shot and prescribed antibiotics. In messages sent to the Times, Michelson said the records are not evidence of dog bites, claiming instead she might have twisted her finger on her dog's collar and scraped her elbow while falling. He said afterwards he checked on Eveling for days and offered to pay her medical bills. He said that the calls were cordial and she seemed okay. Michelson said she also set up a session at his house with a celebrity dog trainer, Cesar Millan, a longtime friend, to work with Neo and Blue together so that Sandra would feel comfortable at the dog park with Blue around. Aw, it's a beautiful pit. It was to protect the animal. If he's an animal rescuer, he probably was pushing against the article to protect the bully dog. Yeah, probably. After the session, Michelson said he and Eveling would see each other at the Gold's Gym Venice, where they both brought their service dog pets. He said that things were always quite friendly and that Eveling never complained about being bitten until she learned of his wealth. Attorney Benjamin Taylor. So anyway, the article came out basically. This is such a funny thing to like demand editorial control over, by the way. God, billionaires are so stupid. I'm sorry. Excuse me. But like yet another case of like two multi-billionaires involved in this, and they are just as stupid as the average person is, okay? Like, this is some shit you would do, or this is some shit that I would do, okay? This is, they're just like us in many ways, in their capacity to be stupid. You know what I mean? I don't get it. Isn't this a different billionaire? Yes. This is another billionaire philanthropist who cares about animal welfare. It's funny because like this is literally a place that I frequented quite a bit every single day, as a matter of fact, when I had fish. Yeah, the only difference between this guy who is a pit owner and anyone else is basically like the fact that he has billions of dollars so he can get lawyers and also knows the billionaire owner of the Los Angeles Times newspaper, so we can just like stop that from being covered. And it seems like the article came out and did this wishy-washy where they were like, is this a case of extortion? And it's obvious to me that this is because of the editorial control enforced by the billionaire owner of the newspaper, who happens to be friends with the guy that they're talking about. Okay? Attorney Benjamin Taylor, who represent your proximity to wealth is insane for your whole life. Dog, when I was in Barrington, I made, like when I went to this dog park every day, I walked to the dog park. I was making $30,000 a year. Okay? That's just LA. I was frequenting the dog park that this billionaire is going to with his pit bull, and I was making 30 grand. Okay? I might have even met the guy. I actually don't know. At least this journalistic malpractice is adorable and low rent versus New York Times giving Bret Stephens a column or Tom Cotton a column. 30K is fairly high, not gonna lie, but probably not for LA. 30K is fairly high. What are we talking about? Whenever someone comes in here and says $30,000 is fairly high salary, I assume you're 12, okay, or 14. Because in Oklahoma, it is no longer considered fairly high. Like, you got to be like living in Mississippi. Even in Mississippi, it's not, is it? Like, where would $30,000 in the United States of America right now be considered a high salary? Brother, I'm in Canada. Oh, because it's, you just described a salary that is literally below the poverty line. Back then, I was getting money from the government when I was doing my taxes, just so you know. I feel like it's not even good enough in Canada unless you're living in the northern the northern point or something. Anyway, Mississippi resident, 30K is not enough for basic survival. Mississippi has the highest food costs in the U.S. Like, I think there are certain parts in the United States of America, like in very remote parts of the U.S., 30K a year could probably help you get by, but you wouldn't be living super comfortably at this stage. But you would still be suffering. Like, you would be experiencing significant financial hardship. Now, the 30K salary I'm talking about is basically almost 10 years ago at this point, so obviously it's a little different for me. But even then in Los Angeles, it was, again, significant financial hardship as a renter, especially. Most of my money went to rent. Sucked. So 30K is low in Spain. Okay. So this we're just like going all over the place. A Los Angeles Times spokesperson spoke to Dr. Sun Xiang, had not wanted the newspaper to be used as a source of exploitation in the legal dispute. He simply urged the editors to ensure that an investigation was done before any story was published. Ms. Sun Xiang had telegraphed the concerns over Ms. Harris's Israel policy in a post on social media earlier this week about the publication's decision not to endorse. This is not a vote for Donald Trump. This is a refusal to endorse a candidate that is overseeing a war on children. I'm proud of the LA Times decision, she posted on X. That's pretty cool, man. I'm sorry. This is a cool ass thing that she said. I was wrong. I'm eating crow. At the Hasan broadcast, if this is correct, if this is actually the truth, then, crows have been eaten. Okay. I'll take it, egg on my face. Straight up. There's a lot of controversy and confusion over LA Times' decision not to endorse a presidential candidate. I trust the editorial board's judgment. For me, the line in the stand. The temptation is to speak in muffled tones about the issue the international courts have called a plausible judgment. But this moment requires opposition to crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, and apartheid, as my parents did in South Africa. For my family, apartheid is not a vague concept. My father was an emergency surgeon at Barak Vanath Hospital in Soweto. He treated students shot by the police during the Soweto uprisings, where 176 died protesting the brutal system of racial segregation. Apartheid was not just a political project, it was a profitable one, underpinned by lobbyists in Washington, U.S. defense contracts, and an international market for weapons, diamonds, and gold. Many U.S. news organizations and politicians were complicit. The official case for apartheid, South Africa's foreign minister outlines the history and philosophy behind his country's policy of separate development for whites and non-whites. Apartheid illegal settlements in Palestine are profitable too, underpinned by U.S. arms dealers witnessing record profits. Ain't no way the New York Times is saying we can't endorse Kamala because she's babies. No, this is not New York Times. This is Los Angeles Times. Los Angeles Times, owned by a private billionaire. This is that private billionaire's daughter saying that Kamala Harris is, the administration that Kamala Harris is a part of, the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration's actions in Gaza led to this decision, led to this interference. I also know from industry people that any positive Israel piece in the LA Times has been seen as a victory because of that original controversy right after 10/7. You don't think she is? She openly says she wants to back up Israel. Wait, what? I have never. Yes, Kamala Harris is 100% pro-Israel. What are you talking about? Yes, I didn't. That's not a picture of his daughter. Breaking, daughter of LA Times owner says endorsement decision stems from Harris stance on Gaza war. That's not a picture of his daughter. That's funny.